let's start with a really basic question. Venky, why raise the $3 billion?
First of all, Ed, Natasha, thank you so much for having us here. It's a privilege to enjoy this special moment with you all, as 50-year history. I think this moment, to me, really reminds me of the Renaissance. Like, I think when I look at the history of mankind and look at what happened in the Renaissance in the 1400s, AI is that moment where we actually have a new technology coming in. We have this incredible density of talent. It was in Florence in the Renaissance. It's in San Francisco with AI. And you have these patrons and the Medicis funding these incredible artists, whether that's Da Vinci, Donatello, and the equivalent of that would be Dario and Dennis. And so I think like that moment is here.
This is a new thesis to the show. Keep going.
And to me, our 50-year history meant that we have had this history of finding these moments. And for Menlo, it's a special moment to be able to have that capital to fund these incredible entrepreneurs. There is an amazing 18-year-old woman out there who's thinking about starting a company, and I want her to know that we are ready with our capital to fund her.
Speaking of history, I mean, this is not the first time we've seen Menlo Ventures raise record funds. I know in the past, in 2005, Menlo raised a $1.2 billion fund, eventually to cut it back down to $400 million to get back to the roots. So what's different this time? What defends the choice to grow the fund size? Really also talk to me a little bit about strategy and sort of how you plan to invest such a big amount of capital.
Great questions, Natasha. I mean, to me, it's all about making sure we have the right capital for the right moment. So I believe that we have a Goldilocks strategy. We are big enough to be able to fund all the companies that matter, yet small enough to drive venture rates of return. And that's really been our focus. We want to be driven by scarcity, so our strategy fits that. And we want to find the companies that really matter and then concentrate on them.
Is this what you call avoiding the middle, the venture capital middle?
Exactly. To us, we want to be in the barbell. We want to be in the earlier stage where we can fund amazing entrepreneurs, pre-product market fit, but get high ownership. And then we want to back the clear winners, like we have done with an Anthropic, a Lovable, and Open Evidence, companies that are scaling and making a difference.
How much does experimentation show up in check writing these days? I know Ed and I have spoken a lot about coconut seeds.
Yeah, what's the point of a seed round, essentially?
Exactly. Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned it. We actually came up with a new seed strategy where we wanted to be nimble. So we set aside a small group of dedicated partners, people like Tim Tully, the CTO of Splunk, Geoff Redfern, the Chief Product Officer of Atlassian, Matt Craning, Didi Das, very dedicated group of people, and had a different focus. We could actually make an investment with a smaller group of people without going to investment committee. So I think experimentation has been a very core part of our 50-year history. We have always wanted to make sure that we are changing with the times, right? The most important things you got to change with the times. We've also experimented by funding neolabs. And so that's also been an area of focus for us.
Funding neolabs, giving founders access to compute, moving away from certain areas. Right. Biology, for example, or not moving away, paring back the focus. Unpack all of that.
Yeah, I think when I think about it, we probably moved away more from like fintech and SaaS and more to AI-centric areas, right? And so to me, biology could be one of those areas in which AI makes a huge impact. I mean, look, the most important things we can do are to help lengthen human lifetime and improve the quality of life. I think AI is going to make a big impact in drug discovery, and it's going to have one of the most positive impacts on healthcare.
You said something to me during our interview. This didn't make the story, but you said, in order to win in venture, you have to be contrarian, you have to be right, and you have to be alone. Where in AI is Menlo right and alone right now?
I'll tell you, we were right and alone in 2023 when we led that round in Anthropic. Kudos to my partner, Matt, who saw this opportunity. Matt, Tim, they saw that this was going to be a special company. If you remember at that time, everybody talked about OpenAI and Microsoft. They said the game was over. OpenAI was the clear winner. Look, OpenAI is a great company, but we had the conviction to put $500 million in an $18 billion round, and I think a lot of people didn't want to. And that's what I mean is you got to be contrarian and right. It's not the first time. We did that with Siri. We did that with Uber. We did that with Roku.
The state of play is really different now. We're going to talk a bit more about the field, after we take a quick break. Something you said about the 18-year-old. Maybe it's not an 18-year-old, but what we're seeing is rounds where there are maybe a few founders, alumni of existing frontier labs or academics. They're raising hundreds of millions of dollars from the get-go. And the venture firms seem to be making a bet on those people, their expertise and their credentials in the field. Is that where you expect this to go?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's more about making sure it's not about 18 or 80. It's about finding the right person. I think what is different about this time is that a lot of the right people are researchers, which is different from what traditionally has been the focus. And so a thing we spend a lot of time at Menlo is thinking about how do we identify these people? What are the characteristics that make this? We've used a lot of data and AI internally. So I would say we are not all in on AI, we're also all in on AI internally to how we build the firm, and we use that to identify the people. And then when you find them, we act with conviction.
I talked to the CEO of Axiom for my story today, who's building a
Talk
mathematics...
about a 21-year-old math genius.
Yeah, I mean, and something she said that was interesting was that, you know, having technical debates with your VCs is actually a hugely valuable add in this moment. A lot of people invest in AI, but a lot of people can't have those debates. Like, talk to me about how you personally are staying up to date on AI and how you're getting competitive intelligence right now. Where are you finding, you know, these founders between 18 and 80?
Yeah, I mean, to me, first thing is to be able to do that, you got to have the right technical people in the building. And so we spent the last 4 years making sure that we built the right technical team. We talked a little bit about Tim, our co-founder of Splunk, Didi, Matt Craning, Geoff Redfern. And then we got to use the technology ourselves. One of the things we did was, and I think you mentioned this in your story, we put microphones in a lot of this so that we could use a new product called Whisper, another founder that you're familiar with. And so the idea is we got to use the technology, we got to drink our own champagne, as I like to say, and then make sure that we are there, ready to meet the founders where they are.
I say the field is different. When you did that Anthropic round, and in the last block we talked about how consequential that was, everything happened very quickly thereafter. Many frontier labs raised money regularly, and those joining the cap table were different. They weren't venture firms. They were mutual funds, legacy Wall Street institutions, hyperscalers, other strategics. How does that change impact a firm like Menlo?
It changes because it brings in a whole set of new players, but I think they bring good perspective. We have looked at this as an opportunity to collaborate and find people who can. Look, when you have a gold rush, everybody rushes in, and I think it takes a lot of capital to build these companies. These founders are special. You spoke to Karina of Axiom Math. She has raised now over 150 million. And I think the way to make, they say it takes a village to raise a child.
Right.
It almost takes a country to raise one of these AI companies. That's the amount of capital. And I think we welcome the chance to collaborate with some of these folks, and they've been great partners.
Bring me back into that moment of deciding to bet the firm really on Anthropic. I mean, my reporting says that Menlo has put around $1 billion into the company, a stake that is worth nearly $14 billion. That's according to sources familiar with the matter. I mean, that kind of return is exciting. It's also the kind of thing that I'm guessing you guys are looking to replicate. So, what's the takeaway there, and what are you looking, how are you changing the way that you write checks?
I think the formula is simple, right? And this has been the same formula that's worked for our last 50 years, which is go deep into an area, build a thesis, find the best company that you can, commit to that founder, and then partner with them to build with conviction. And every one of those things happened with Anthropic, in the sense that we looked at the entire AI landscape. We zeroed in on this very, very special founding team of Daniela and Dario and the 6 other founders. And then my partner, Matt, said, we got to lean with conviction. We all rallied around it, and we raised the biggest capital we ever have. And then we have committed to build the company with them. And to me, that's the same formula we did with Uber, we did with Roku, we did with Chime. And I think the same formula we'll do in the future. We'll be selective. We will we have a Goldilocks strategy to be the right size. And then when we find the right company, we will lead with conviction and concentrate on them.
What do you make of the king-making, queen-making strategy that's across Silicon Valley, the idea of sort of anointing a winner early on by putting a lot of capital into them? That is quite different than the Anthropic bet that you guys made. It was definitely, pre-revenue and pre-household name.
Although he did call Dario the Da Vinci of this age, so I don't know. Sorry.
No, but yeah, I'm curious, I guess, the idea of, trying to find that company, not when it's at, a multi-billion valuation, but when it's at a 50 million valuation and helping it hit those huger numbers.
So first of all, I love the fact that you said queen making. We have 3 daughters, and my wife is definitely the queen of our house. So I like that. And to us, you're right. The way I think we think about queen making is to really find those companies early, and we have found plenty of those. So while we love Anthropic, it's an amazing company. I literally talk to my investors about the 10 AI companies, not named Anthropic, we're excited about. A company like Axiom Math, where we found Karina, invested in her very early on.
Open Evidence,
Whisper AI, which I know you have a connection with. All Lovable. These are all companies we have found early. That's really been Menlo's focus. Find them early, partner with them, size up with conviction, and then build.
I don't want to put you in a position where you can't speak freely, and I get that Anthropic's filed confidentially, etc. But it seems like there are 2 stories that are both true at the same time. Companies are staying private for longer, and yet we are on the cusp of a very big IPO window. How do you interpret that moment? And also, the thing is, it's not just that private companies are staying private longer. The private markets seem very willing to support that duration and the level of funding that they need.
It is very much true that the private markets are probably the biggest I've seen in my lifetime, right? I've been doing venture capital now for my 30th year, and they're deeper, and this allows companies to stay private. Though I think eventually my feeling is a lot of these companies should go public for a couple of reasons. One, we do want the public to participate. I think it's very important that in this AI revolution...
You see it as democratic?
Yes, I think, and I think it's good for society to be able to participate as a wider group. I also think that going public creates discipline for all these private companies. Ultimately, sunlight is the best disinfectant, and there's no better sunlight than going public.